She found herself lying on a bed with a handsome man beside her. Thinking she was dreaming, she happily touched his chest. But just then, the system notified her that she had traveled to the future world. If she wanted to return to the real world, she had to win the heart of the CEO, Luis, the man in front of her. At that moment, Luis woke up and remembered that they had a one-night stand after he got drunk. He handed her a check and told her to name her price, but she grabbed his arm and said, "I don't want money. I just want to be with you." Luis tore up the check and said, "I've seen many greedy women like you. I know your intentions." To help Emma complete her task within 3 months, the system arranged a position for her in Luis's company. She was instantly transported to his office, becoming a janitor. Luis noticed someone under his desk, grabbed her, and pulled off her mask. He realized she was the woman he had slept with. He ordered her to specifically clean his office from now on, and she happily agreed. However, he suspected she might be a corporate spy, planning to keep her around until she slipped up. Emma began to pursue Luis. On the first day, she applied makeup and pretended to run into him by chance. He asked her to turn around, and she winked at him, thinking she had charmed him. But he took off her fake eyelashes and said, "Your appearance doesn't meet company standards. Fine of $100. The next day, she acted weak and afraid of heights to stir his sympathy. Hearing someone's footsteps approaching, she pretended to fall off the chair, landing in his arms and acting coquettishly, only to realize she had fallen into the arms of his assistant. She quickly pushed him away. Luis's affection for her dropped by 1 point, causing her to faint on the spot. Luis thought she was faking it again, but his assistant told him that this time she had truly passed out. Emma accidentally caught an employee leaking company secrets and recorded a video. Luis was very grateful to her, and his affection for her increased by 5 points, which made her very happy. He rewarded her with $20,000 and planned to take her out for a dinner. He initially suggested a Western restaurant, but she took him to a hot pot restaurant instead. He couldn't handle the spicy food and was coughing from the peppers. Emma put a straw in his mouth, only to find his favorability towards her increased again. Since she had accumulated 50% of the points, she gained a new superpower. As long as she touched a person's butt, she could read their mind. Just as she was about to touch Luis's butt, he noticed her and she quickly fled. One day, Emma escorted her drunk boss home, and he kissed her on the bed. She seized the opportunity to touch his butt twice, but heard him mentally calling her name. She thought her superpower had malfunctioned. The next day, during lunch, Emma asked Luis if he remembered what happened the previous night. He pretended not to. She angrily asked, "Then what did you mean by what you did to me last night?" Seeing he didn't respond, she touched his butt and heard his inner voice, "Because I like you." She happily walked away, leaving the confused boss behind. Emma caught a male supervisor harassing a female employee and rushed in with a mop to protect her. The supervisor tried to strike her, but Luis happened to pass by and stopped him. Emma silently cursed the supervisor, "You pervert. Take a big fall." To her surprise, he really did fall. Emma had received a new skill from the system. She could jinx someone. She then cursed the supervisor to crash into a wall, and he did exactly that. However, the supervisor wasn't deterred and continued harassing the employee. Luis opened the door, decided to fire him immediately, and blacklist him in the industry. It turned out that Emma had gathered evidence and sought help from the boss. The female employee was very grateful to her. Emma found a small boy in the trash can, who turned out to be Luis's nephew, David. David had his eye on a toy in a mall, but the salesperson dismissed him, thinking he couldn't afford it because of his shabby clothes. Seeing David being bullied, Emma stepped in, stood up for him, and said she would file a complaint against the salesperson. The salesperson quickly apologized, but Emma refused to accept it and took David away. Her actions made David feel a sense of long-lost family warmth, so he became close to her. That evening, when Luis returned to the office, he saw Emma and David both asleep. When Emma woke up and slowly approached him, he thought she was going to kiss him, so he shyly said, "We can't be too intimate in the office." David called Emma Aunt, which made Luis even more shy. Luis's grandmother, Maria, disguised herself as a janitor to test Emma. While cleaning, she accidentally bumped into a female employee, who angrily scolded Maria for dirtying her designer clothes. Emma exposed that the employee was wearing fake designer clothes, threw money at her, and said, "Here's some extra money for gum." "You have bad breath." The employee was furious. Maria admired Emma's kindness and thought she would be a great granddaughter-in-law. Emma took Maria for a massage, but Luis suddenly appeared and called Maria Grandma. Maria took Emma home and urged her to marry Luis soon. To complete the system's task, Emma proposed to Luis and he agreed. They went to get their marriage certificate. Luis took Emma to an aquarium. She drank from his drink, which surprised him, but he happily took a sip as well. Emma accidentally bumped into someone and almost fell, but Luis quickly caught her and picked her up. They looked at each other lovingly. She put a cute animal headband on him, and he wrapped his arm around her waist, grabbing her phone to take selfies. That night, when they returned home, Luis's grandmother handed them 2 bowls of soup to drink, but secretly added an aphrodisiac. Luis knocked Emma onto the bed, undid his tie, and kissed her passionately. The next morning, Luis slowly leaned in to kiss Emma, but just then, the doorbell rang. When Emma opened the door, she found her high school classmate Olivia standing there. Olivia had often bullied her in school, even stomping on a birthday gift from her grandmother. Olivia angrily said, "Luis and I are childhood friends. I'm the one who should be his wife." But Emma wasn't intimidated and proudly showed her diamond ring. Olivia splashed water on her, but Emma immediately retaliated by slapping Olivia. Olivia intended to slap Emma back, but saw Luis coming out of the room, so she pretended to fall and falsely accused Emma of pushing her. Luis asked Emma what had happened, and she thought he didn't believe her, so she left sadly. Luis wanted to chase after her, but Olivia stopped him. Sitting by the roadside, Emma met a kind man named Jack. He comforted her and encouraged her. Just then, Luis arrived. He grabbed her hand, trying to take her home. Jack thought Luis was her brother, but Luis corrected him, saying, "I'm her husband." Emma was still mad at him, so she left him behind and walked away. To make it up to her, Luis invited her to have lunch together, but she said, "The company doesn't allow office romances." "Boss, are you going to break company rules?" Later, Emma met Jack at work, learning that he had just joined the company and that they would be colleagues from now on. Luis, seeing them chat happily, became jealous. In the evening, Luis saw them having dinner together and became even more jealous. In the following days, Emma and Jack often had lunch together, and their colleagues all thought they were dating. Luis watched them, fuming, and snapped his chopsticks. He immediately enacted a new rule: no opposite-sex colleagues can eat together, or they'll be fined $100. When Emma was practicing archery, Luis suddenly hugged her from behind and taught her how to shoot. She was starstruck, thinking he looked incredibly handsome. After she hit the target, he leaned in to kiss her, but at that moment, he woke up. It was just a dream. His assistant then informed him that Emma and Jack had gone to the archery range together, so he rushed over immediately. He arrived to see Jack holding Emma and teaching her shoot, which made him furious. To upset Emma, he deliberately picked up Olivia and left with her. However, the moment they left the archery range, he put Olivia down and warned her to stop causing trouble. Emma, dressed in an elegant gown, attended the company's masquerade ball, but she was locked in a storage room. Suffering from claustrophobia, she panicked in the darkness as memories of being bullied in high school flooded her mind. Meanwhile, Olivia, wearing an identical gown, went to the party and invited Luis to dance. However, he immediately recognized that she wasn't Emma. He opened the storage room door and tightly embraced Emma. At the ball, he announced to all the guests that Emma was his wife. He then gave her a necklace that had belonged to his late mother, promising her a grand wedding. But just then, the system notified Emma that her points were full and she was about to leave this world. Crying, she hugged Luis tightly, but a few seconds later, she vanished. When she opened her eyes, she found herself back in her dorm room in the real world, but the necklace Luis gave her was still around her neck. What she didn't know was that Luis had also traveled from the real world and had now returned as well. To forget this love story, he decided to drink a memory-erasing potion. A few years later, Emma ran into Luis again, but he no longer remembered her. She mistook him for a construction worker, and he didn't correct her. Soon after, they met again at a company, where Luis pretended to be a janitor and had his assistant pose as the boss. Emma saw a photo of Luis on the CEO's desk and assumed he was the lover of the male boss. Luis tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen and promised to keep his secret. Outside the company, Emma sympathized with his situation and proposed, "Let's be together. I have a decent salary, a car, and a house. I can support you." Luis replied, "But I'm just a janitor." Emma said, "It's okay. I don't mind." Luis smiled and agreed. He brought gifts to visit Emma's parents, but they looked down on him for being a poor janitor and suspected the gifts were counterfeit. They tried to force Emma to marry Bruce, a wealthy boss who was willing to pay a large dowry. Bruce humiliated Emma, but when he saw Luis, he immediately recognized him and was so terrified that he fell to the ground. However, Luis warned Bruce not to expose his identity. Emma's friend Lily recognized Luis as the CEO and became jealous, deciding to steal him. Lily brought homemade soup to his office to curry favor, but Luis completely ignored her and forbade her from coming near. That evening, Lily invited Luis to a hotel and secretly spiked his drink with an aphrodisiac. Luis passed out, and Lily carried him to the bed and took off her clothes. However, when she returned from the bathroom, she found Emma lying on the bed instead. Only then did Lily realize she had been tricked. Luis hadn't fallen for her plan at all. Emma slapped Lily, and when Lily tried to retaliate, Luis pushed her away. Lily told Emma that her janitor boyfriend Luis was actually a billionaire who had been deceiving her. Furious, Emma refused to listen to his explanation. But Luis picked her up and sat her on his lap, saying, "We're legally married, so this is perfectly fine." Emma was shocked because, in the real world, they were only dating and hadn't yet married. Could he still remember the events of the future world? To confirm her suspicion, she tricked him into entering a storage room. In a moment of panic, he told his assistant, "She has claustrophobia. Get a doctor immediately." Emma asked him how he knew about her condition, but he still refused to admit he had those memories, leaving her heartbroken as she walked away. Determined to move on, Emma decided to marry another man. But Luis stormed into the wedding and stopped her from going through with it. Emma asked, "What gives you the right to stop me?" He replied, "Because I'm your husband." I remember everything." He hugged her tightly and confessed, "You left me last time, and I resented you for it." After waking up, I considered drinking the potion to erase those memories, but I couldn't bring myself to forget you. So, in the end, I didn't drink it. Emma signaled for the lights to be turned on, and Luis realized there was no groom at the wedding. It was all a setup by Emma to make him confess, and Luis was her true groom. She grabbed his shirt and kissed him. One day after their marriage, Emma told Luis that she had been feeling nauseous lately. Luis said, "You just ate 3 burgers, a bowl of spicy noodles, and a milk tea. Feeling nauseous is normal." Speechless, Emma pulled his ear and told him, "The doctor said there's something growing in my belly." Thinking she had a tumor, Luis became extremely worried and wanted to rush her to the hospital. Infuriated, Emma clarified that she was pregnant. Luis quickly chased after her, telling her to walk slowly. The couple finally lived happily ever after. Let's wish them a lifetime of sweetness and joy.